The Range Rover Evoque Convertible blazes a new trail as the first open-top compact SUV on the market. It's a divisive concept and a pricey package, but it's proving successful in allowing Land Rover to tempt buyers from more conventional cabrios. If you're not convinced by the thinking behind this car, you might ask why anyone would want one. And in answering, we could talk of the unique looks, the stylish image, and the promise of the kind of impressive off-road ability that no other open-top car can match. It might be easier, though, to ask a simple question of our own. Why not?
If you think you've seen everything in this industry, then you probably haven't. We've had MPV coupes, crossover estates and hybrid electric supercars. Why not an SUV cabrio too? Well, that's what's on offer here in the form of this Range Rover Evoque Convertible. There have, of course, been quite a few Land Rovers with soft tops. Go back to the Series 1 model of 1948, and the only way you could have it was with a canvas roof. But of course, that isn't quite the same thing. It's probably more pertinent to point out that there's never been a Range Rover with a convertible body style, apart from a few ill-conceived aftermarket conversions. Now, though, is apparently the right time for one. Evoque sales may have topped 500,000, but competitors are catching up and dealers need something fresh and exciting to talk about. Launched in the spring of 2016, this car certainly offers that, given that, for the time being at least, this model has absolutely no direct rivals. The concept behind it, though, is as polarising as Donald Trump, something you'll either absolutely love or completely fail to see the point of. What's not up for debate is the thoroughness of the engineering on offer here. This convertible model retains all the off-road ability of its fixed-top stablemates. It can comfortably seat 4 adults and offers a 5-layer folding fabric hood that can seal out anything the weather can throw at it. In concept, this car may be answering a question that previously no one was asking, but then all successful innovation starts that way. No one was asking for an SUV that could scale Snowdon and then take you to the opera before the Range Rover first provided it in 1970. And no one was asking for a compact 4x4 with a cutting-edge styling of a sports car before the Evoque delivered that in 2011. Now Land Rover's moved the game on again, but is this a niche too far? It's going to be interesting finding out. So, what's it like? Well, very nice indeed, actually. The high-set driving position that you get with any proper SUV feels even better when the roof's removed, and you're able to enjoy the psychological superiority of peering over hedges and looking down on less fortunate folk who draw up alongside. All of which is just as well, because in concept at least, this car has quite a mountain to climb even before it goes anywhere off-road, making the platform this Range Rover rigid enough to compensate for the lack of a tin top and safe enough to meet convertible model rollover legislation was always going to require an enormous amount of chassis strengthening. Add to that the bulk of the Webasto hood mechanism, and you've got a 280 kilo increase in portliness that leaves a well-specified version of this car tipping the scales at over 2 tons. All of this you really feel on the move. This open Evoque doesn't change direction with the eagerness you get from a fixed top model, and it has to ride a lot more firmly. The stiffer setup a further necessity to try and reduce chassis flex over those bumps. As you might expect, it's a bit slower too, though in the TD4 diesel version we're trying here, the variant that almost everyone will buy, that lethargy is masked to some extent by the willing pulling power of the 2-litre 180 PS Ingenium engine. Thanks to 430 Nm of torque, the 9.7 second rest to 62 miles an hour time is only 0.7 a second down on the equivalent coupe model, and the 121 miles an hour top speed is exactly the same. In theory, the alternative 2-litre SI4 petrol derivative is quicker, with 240 PS on tap and performance figures that promise 62 miles an hour from rest in 7.8 seconds en route to 130 miles an hour. In practice though, since torque delivery falls to 340 Newton meters in this variant, it struggles a little more with the Evoque Convertible's not inconsiderable bulk, and it uses a lot more fuel in the process. So why would you? Whichever engine you choose, it's a requirement with this body style to have its performance marshalled by Land Rover's 9-speed ZF automatic gearbox. Now, questions as to whether it's really necessary to have all those ratios tend to melt away once you spend a little time with this car and appreciate the seamless changes and the advantages that come with a super low start-off gear and an extra top cog for more efficient cruising. Click the rotary controller into S or Sport mode, and if you do your bit with the wheel-mounted paddle shifters, the transmission can work with a bit of urgency too. Can the car corner that way? Well, it's better through the turns than we expected it might be. The decently feelsome electric power steering helps here, and body roll is reasonably well controlled. Plus, there's one of those torque vectoring systems to lightly brake the inside wheels through the sharper bends. That keeps the car more accurately on its intended course. None of which is especially relevant, really, given that this isn't the kind of car that you ever really feel the need to thrash about, nor would it be particularly rewarding if you did. It's far better to retract the hood and drive in this al fresco fashion whenever it's possible, enjoying the car for what it is, rather than wishing it was something that it isn't. The header rail at the top of the windscreen extends a long way back, which initially is a little disappointing because it slightly masks the way that you'd otherwise see the sky out of your upper peripheral vision as you drive along. The advantage of this design, though, is that it improves aerodynamics and reduces turbulence to the point where there's almost none to speak of at speeds of up to 60 miles an hour and relatively little buffeting beyond that. There's this optional wind deflector that you can clip over the back seat area to further minimise this. And when the sky clouds over, the roof can be raised in 21 seconds and can be operated at speeds of up to 30 miles an hour, although that is still slow enough to cause a measure of aggravation to following motorists if you can't be bothered to find somewhere to pull over and stop while you do it. With the top up, refinement's very impressive, very similar to the levels of hush you get in a coupe Evoque model, even at cruising speeds. Much more of an issue when the roof is raised is rear three-quarter vision. It's all right when you're trying to park. The rear sensors and the reversing camera compensate here, but the over-the-shoulder view you get when changing lanes is quite a lot less than ideal, to the point where we'd suggest to Land Rover that the optional blind spot monitor system you can specify in this car really ought to be standard. Try and get your dealer to throw that in. So let's finish with the aspect of using this car that we most like. The unique feeling it offers roof down off-road. Now, it's not something we expect many Evoque convertible owners to ever do, and it is their loss because driving off-piste takes on a completely different dimension when there's no roof between you and the surrounding environment. When you can hear the birds singing as you duck beneath the branches, and you can cheerily converse with passers-by who are shocked to find convertible motoring being enjoyed in the wilds. Provided you can avoid getting poked in the eye by an overhanging twig, you'll find the whole experience enormously enjoyable. Especially as the off-road capability of this Evoque doesn't appear to have been diminished in any meaningful way as part of the cabrio conversion. The intelligent full-time four-wheel drive system is, of course, the same effective setup that you'd find in the tin-top model, using an electronically controlled Haldex center coupling to continuously vary the flow of torque between the front and rear wheels to suit the traction that you have available to work with. As an alternative to those who wish to maximise efficiency, there's an extra cost option of the kind of on-demand four-wheel drive system that other manufacturers of small SUVs tend to use. Land Rover calls it the active drive line, which switches the car into a front-driven setup whenever possible. Also familiar from the ordinary Evoque is Land Rover's much-admired terrain response system. All that's required with this is to use these buttons in front of the gear stick, selecting a mode that suits the ground that you're on. There are general driving, grass, gravel and snow, mud and ruts, or sand options. And once you've chosen one of these, then it's just a case of leaving the car's electronics to work out how best to dole out the power and maximise the traction, sniffing out grip where none seems to exist, and turning the Evoque into an impressively capable all-road driving machine with progress that you can monitor in real time via a neat 4x4i display on the centre dash infotainment screen. If we do have a slight disappointment with terrain response, it's only in that this form, it doesn't provide you with the set and forget auto mode that's offered on larger Land Rover models, and which effectively makes all the decisions for you. Still, you can't argue with the levels of off-piste capability that have been achieved here. This Evoque will plough through 4-foot-high water, it can scale extremely steep 45-degree gradients and can tilt to an impressive 35 degrees. True, this convertible model's approach, departure and breakover angles can't quite match those that you'd be able to achieve in a fixed top variant, but being able to approach and scale a slope of up to 19 degrees in steepness, exit the incline at a departure angle of up to 31 degrees and cope with a ramp breakover angle of up to 18.9 degrees is still pretty impressive for any kind of SUV, let alone a fashion-conscious soft top. To help you make the most of this capability, there's hill start assist to help you get up steep slopes, and hill descent control and gradient release control to ease you down them. If you're fording up to 500 millimetres of water, an optional wade sensing feature updates you on the depth you're in. And there's even a kind of cruise control system for off-road use. Land Rover calls it ATPC, or all-terrain progress control. Now you set it at speeds between 1 and 90 miles an hour and then leave ATPC to monitor traction and decide on the right speeds for the conditions. All you do is steer. It makes traversing the most daunting piece of terrain feel like a piece of cake. All of this might sound like overkill for a stylish soft top, but you'll appreciate it if you ever find yourself in a soggy parking field at Glyndebourne or Burley, or when negotiating a slithery, snow-covered track up to your ski lodge in Chamonix. And it's at that point you'll appreciate that this car isn't only a fashion accessory. It's also, in every way that really matters, a proper Land Rover. Translating a concept car into a production reality can be fraught with pitfalls and problems, which is why it took Land Rover 4 years to get this model into the showrooms, following its initial showing at the Paris Motor Show in 2012. You can imagine the head-scratching that must have gone on amongst the engineers. For a start, there would have been the usual issue that affects any cabrio design, that of maintaining torsional rigidity without a roof, a crucial consideration here, given the need to retain in this variant the Evoque's trademark sharp handling. On top of that, convertible models aren't usually designed to pitch themselves at extreme angles. Yet, to maintain a Land Rover's standard of off-road prowess, this one needed to be able to tilt to up to 35 degrees without upsetting the kind of electronic rollover protection system that any modern open-top car has to have these days. It's all been achieved, though, thanks primarily to a very strong base structure that uses higher strength steel in the door sills, added chassis bracings and larger diameter anti-roll bars. Engineering in all of this could have created quite an ugly silhouette, but fortunately that hasn't happened here. As you'd expect, the whole thing's based on the coupe Evoque body style rather than the 5-door body shape, and that 3-door model's distinctive shoulder line forms the window line for this drop-top variant. With the roof down like this, there's a lovely uncluttered feel to the styling, mainly because the Z-folding convertible roof system stows the 5-layer fabric hood completely out of sight beneath the rear deck. Raising it takes 21 seconds. You simply press this button to the left of the cup holders between the front seats, and that's something you can do at speeds of up to 30 miles an hour, so there's no need to stop when the sun comes out or the rain begins. Now, for some reason, lowering the hood is a touch quicker, occupying 18 seconds. Now, the Z-fold fabric setup was designed by Webasto, and they're the same people who do hoods for Ferrari and McLaren, so it's no surprise to find it's a quality item. It's a pity, though, that you can't operate it remotely from the key fob, and that you can't have it in any colour other than black. Whatever the position of the top, the car has quite a purposeful stance that's embellished by nearly all the things that set any ordinary Evoque apart as a piece of pavement sculpture. There's the same sharp swage line that flows just below the door handles, along with a subtler one just above the sills that connects prominent wheel arches housing huge standard 20-inch wheels, these particular ones featuring sparkle silver trim. Overall, it's a shape that works anywhere. On paper, in the showroom, on the King's Road, wherever. Move to the back and the usual tailgate is replaced by this boot lid that hinges at the top to create as large a luggage opening as possible. There's also a small spoiler integrated into the trunk top with a wide third brake light included. Smart LED lamp clusters sit at either side of the cargo door, while underneath are twin exhaust pipes that are built into this wraparound plastic trim panel that's meant to blend the visual appeal of the kind of diffuser you get on a sports convertible with the look of the sort of skid plate that you get on an SUV. There's some clever design work you can't see too. For example, the development team had to think of somewhere else to put the twin fin antenna that you'd find fitted to the roof of an ordinary Evoque. Here, two antennae replace this item, one high-frequency unit mounted between the rear seats and a low-frequency transmitter mounted into the rear bumper. I move to the front, and these A-pillars are of course specially strengthened for the convertible body style, but otherwise it's pretty much like any other Evoque. So you get these slimline headlights with their distinctive daytime running light signatures, the lamps using bi-xenon beams as standard, or there's the option, it's been taken up here, of full LED technology if you want it. Either way, the lights frame a smart front grille with this geometric hexagonal design. Further down, a skid plate bar, you can colour customise frames of the lower grille, while at each corner, prominent air intakes are topped by slimline LED fog lamps. Time to take a look inside, where you'll find that the at-the-wheel experience is very much as it would be in any other Evoque. Well, in any other very plush Evoque anyway. Befitting their premium status in the lineup, convertible models come as standard with luxurious Oxford ebony leather upholstery, electrically adjustable heated seats and top touches like illuminated tread plates and configurable mood lighting. For us though, all of this isn't quite enough to make this cabin feel as special as perhaps you want it to be for the price, even if, as here, you get your car fitted out with extended stitched leather trim around the fascia. Fortunately, more vibrant optional trim packages can lift things quite a bit. Design changes for this open-top variant are mostly limited things that you might not ordinarily spot. Reprofiled seats, revised door casings with more deeply padded armrests, frameless windows and a locking function for the glove box that secures the lid when you secure the car with the roof lowered. The other key difference over an ordinary Evoque relates to the infotainment system. The 8-inch in-control centre dash touchscreen you'd normally get, replaced here by a wider, more sophisticated-looking, standard-fit 10.2-inch in-control Touch Pro setup. Unfortunately, even with this, the package still does without the kind of rotary controller that makes comparable Audi and BMW systems so easy to get to grips with. Instead, you have to jab away using the touchscreen if, like us, you find it difficult to deal with the voice control. Still, once you do master the setup, it's undeniably very impressive. Not only dealing with the expected informational, telephone, climate and navigation functions, but also providing a high-quality 10-speaker Meridian digital sound system and allowing access to Land Rover's suite of in-control connected car technologies. A little disappointingly, these don't enable you to connect your smartphone via Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but they do allow almost every other imaginable kind of media connectivity wish to be catered for. Your Evoque can be a Wi-Fi hotspot, of course, so you can Facebook your friends, catch up on the news and surf through your favourite apps. The car will learn your daily commute, it'll picture your destinations and allow you to monitor and activate its functionality via your smartphone. Plus, it'll automatically call for help in an accident and snitch on its location to the police if it's ever stolen. It's all very impressive. Something that's even more likely to sell you this car is the commanding raised driving position. And that's the kind of thing you simply don't get with other convertibles. It gives a great view ahead and to the side thanks to the pillarless design of the windows, but it can't compensate for the enormous rear three-quarter blind spot that's created by the design of the C-pillar when the roof's raised. Just as well then that parking sensors and a reversing camera are standard. What else? Well, it's a pity the start button's such a reach away, and still the 3-spoke leather-trimmed multifunction steering wheel feels good to hold, and the dials that you view through it are separated by a smart colour TFT display that shows trip computer data and details the various driving settings that you've selected. As with all automatic Land Rovers, this one gets a rotary gear selector that glides up into your palm from startup. And as with other models in the range, this one appears to have been beautifully screwed together in the Merseyside factory. Moving on to practicalities, well, there's not a huge amount of cabin storage space. The door pockets and the glove box are a little bit small, but you do get an overhead compartment for your sunglasses and a reasonably sized bin behind these cup holders between the seats, complete with various connectivity ports. Plus, we do like the ambiently lit Volvo-style empty space behind the rising centre console, and the fact that the switch gear is designed to be operated with gloved hands. So, time to take a seat in the back. Now, when the roof is down like this, getting into the rear of any convertible is relatively easy. But an advantage of this Land Rover's raised height is that even with the roof up, the process promises to be fairly straightforward. Which it would be if you weren't immediately impeded by the fact that these front seats don't automatically slide ahead as you pull the backrest forward. Instead, you have to electrically adjust them to get them forward far enough to get in. And once you've made it into one of these two sculpted rear pews, there are further promises tinged with disappointment. On the plus side, there's more head, shoulder and leg room than you get from a comparably priced executive cabrio, which would make it very comfortable back here, were it not for the fact that to accommodate that rear roof compartment, Land Rover has had to position these seat backs at quite a vertical angle. It'd be fine on a short trip, but as an adult, you really wouldn't want to have to endure a longer journey here. Pay for the optional ski hatch and you get this centre armrest. Speaking of which, let's take a look in the boot. Now, we'd hoped that in proper Range Rover style, this car would feature a fold-down boot lid you could sit on. Instead, there's the mild inconvenience of a lift-up one, although it can be operated by gesture control if you get a plush variant. Inside, instead of the 420-litre luggage capacity you get in an Evoque Coupe, it's limited to 251 litres, and that's just over 100 litres less than you get in a comparable convertible BMW 4 Series or Mercedes C-Class. Still, at least the capacity doesn't alter with the position of the roof. Now, Land Rover says that the room on offer is enough for a pushchair or a set of golf clubs, though the insertion of items like that might require a bit of jiggling once you've lumped them over the high loading sill. There's a useful compartment below the boot floor that we'd suggest you fill with a spare wheel. Disappointingly, for an SUV brand, Land Rover doesn't provide this as standard, nor does it include within the price the ski hatch that we'd have thought almost every owner would want, given that the rear seat backs don't fold forward. Another must-have option is the main thing that most owners will regularly be transporting in this boot: the bag for the wind deflector that you can clip in across the rear passenger compartment to reduce buffeting on the move. Now it's time to check out how much this car costs and what you get for that money. Now, to park an Evoque convertible on your drive will require around £4,000 more than the sum that's required to purchase a comparably specified Evoque Coupe. Plus, remember that here you have to have the brand's smooth shifting 9-speed automatic gearbox. In addition, you'll need to bear in mind that from launch, this soft-top version was only made available with two of the most expensive levels of Evoque trim, HSE Dynamic and HSE Dynamic Luxe. It all means the need for asking figures either just below or just above the £50,000 mark. HSE Dynamic trim will bring you in just below that figure, but you'll probably be tempted to push the boat out a little further and find the premium of just over £4,000 for one of the plusher HSE Dynamic Luxe variants. Now, as you'll know from other segments of this film, Evoque convertible buyers were from launch offered two engine options, but only around 10% of them are likely to want to pay the £700 premium to progress from this 180 bhp TD4 diesel variant to the 240 bhp SI4 petrol model. Now, it's at this point we'd normally talk about the value proposition being offered here in comparison to obvious rivals. The problem in this case, though, is that, as Land Rover is quick to point out, there simply aren't any luxury SUV segment convertible models to pitch this car against. So, who will be buying it? And what kind of other models will they typically be considering? Well, we'll try and answer that here and start by saying that a fairly large proportion of Evoque convertible customers will be people who would otherwise have bought a 3- or 5-door fixed-top version of this car loaded up with every conceivable extra. Now, there are probably enough customers of that sort to sustain sales of this variant even if it didn't appeal to anyone else. But, of course, it will. We think a likely group of conquest customers for Land Rover will come from people who otherwise probably would have bought executive segment fabric top models like cabriolet versions of the Mercedes C-Class and Audi A5, plus also BMW's 4 Series convertible. All these 3 cars, you might be surprised to learn, can be ordered with 4-wheel drive. Though, of course, it's there in those cases merely to help with slippery tarmac rather than facilitate the kind of trip in the wilderness that's potentially promised here. Think of terms of the German brand models I just mentioned being priced in the £40,000 to £50,000 bracket, depending on the model and variant you choose. Oh, remember too that, perhaps contrary to your expectations, any one of those will offer more boot space, lower running costs and probably a bit more power than you get in this Evoque. Which is all fair enough, but the end recipe isn't really quite the same. So ultimately there is nothing really quite like this car. If you agree and you've decided that it is an Evoque convertible that you really want, then you're going to want to know just how generous Land Rover has been with a standard spec. So, let's see. Now, we mentioned at the beginning that the trim variations on offer are the plushest ones, so be expecting quite a lot. And you shouldn't be disappointed. Go for this HSE dynamic version, and as well as 4-wheel drive and the powered Z-folding convertible roof system, you get 20-inch alloy wheels, xenon headlamps, front fog lamps, heated windscreen, auto headlamps and wipers, front and rear parking sensors, power folding mirrors, a volumetric alarm and Narvik black finishing for the front grille, the wing vents and the boot spoiler. Move inside an HSE dynamic variant and you'll find supple Oxford leather upholstery with the front seats being heated and 12-way electrically adjustable. Also included is cruise control, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, illuminated tread plates, push-button starter and configurable mood lighting that allows you to bathe the interior in a choice of 10 different colours. There's a reversing camera too, which is one of the things you can view via what is probably the highlight in the cabin, the 10.2-inch Land Rover In-Control Touch Pro infotainment touchscreen. Now through this, you can access a 60GB solid-state disk storage setup that'll allow you to store up to 16,000 of your favourite songs, plus there's Bluetooth and standard In-Control Touch Pro navigation. You also get a 380-watt 10-speaker Meridian digital sound system that's optionally upgradable to a 660-watt 12-speaker setup on request. But there's a lot more to this car's media capability than that, an awful lot more. Where to start? Well, this flagship model gives you the In-Control Secure Vehicle Tracking System, along with the In-Control Protect setup that provides breakdown and emergency assistance at the touch of a button and includes a Remote Essentials app you can download that'll allow you to monitor your Evoque from your smartphone, giving you vital stats about the vehicle, including fuel level and range. Want even more media connectivity? Well, you can have it as standard with this convertible variant thanks to an In-Control Connect Pro package of technologies that owners of most lesser Evoque models will have to pay extra for. This includes 3 key elements: In-Control apps, In-Control Remote Premium and In-Control Pro services. Now, don't glaze over with all the In-Control stuff. Some of it is really useful. Take In-Control apps, for example, a range of applications developed with experts at Bosch Softec that work with both Apple and Android phones. You simply connect your handset into the car's USB port and then choose from a whole range of downloadable apps, including popular ones like Stitcher, Glimpse, Hotel Seeker, City Seeker and AirMotion News. Now, I also mentioned In-Control Remote Premium, and that's a setup that'll give you even more ways to monitor the functionality of your car remotely from your smartphone, allowing you to lock or unlock the vehicle from anywhere in the world, pre-cool or preheat the cabin to a required temperature before the start of any journey, and even assist you if you need help in finding your Evoque in a crowded car park. Thirdly, and probably most importantly, the whole In-Control Connect Pro thing gives you In-Control Pro services. That's a range of connected features that include 6 further items. Yes, more media connectivity, but stay with me and I'll count those final features off for you. So firstly, you get a 3G Wi-Fi hotspot. Secondly, there are so-called live services that update you on things like news, weather, local fuel prices and flight tracking. Thirdly, there's a Route Planner Companion app that will allow you to re-plan a route on an Apple or Android device and then download it to the car. Fourthly, there's a commute mode that learns your daily commute and automatically advises you of the expected journey time based on the traffic movements. The fifth feature is arrival mode parking that displays parking availability and pricing close to your destination. And finally, the system offers an arrival mode that displays interactive 360-degree street level imagery of your destination. How on earth did we survive without all this? So let's switch our attention now to the other pricier spec level available on this car, HSE Dynamic Looks. Is it worth finding the extra for that? Well, possibly. Going for this variant means you now have to pay more for the 2 features that really ought to be standard with HSE Dynamic trim but aren't, namely a ski hatch in the middle of the rear seat to accommodate longer loads and a wind deflector that fits over the back seat space to reduce buffeting at higher speeds. Other Lux spec features include keyless entry, a gesture-orientated boot lid that opens when you wave your foot beneath the bumper, headlamps that automatically dip themselves at night, and an upgraded 17-speaker 825-watt Meridian surround sound system. Also a package of extra electronic safety features that we'll cover in a minute. Plus, there's a surround camera system and a park assist setup that helps you identify spaces and then automatically steers you into them. We would point out, though, that most of these features are available as individual extras on the options list. Having mentioned that, let's talk you through the extra cost features you might want to add to this car. Well, we'll start with the driving stuff. This Evoque's four-wheel drive system can be ordered with an active driveline feature that disconnects the rear wheels in ordinary motoring for extra running cost efficiency, but which will then seamlessly bring them back again as and when you need the extra traction. What else? Well, if you're really going to be taking to the wilds, you might be interested in a wave sensing feature that tells you how deep the water is that you're driving through. More relevant for most potential owners, though, are the adaptive LED headlamps that have been fitted to the car we're trying here, with their signature lighting, automatic levelling and cornering capability. There's also an optional head-up display that projects the car's speed and other vital information onto the windscreen, and that can be ordered either on its own or as part of a convenience pack that'll also come with keyless entry and a solar attenuating windscreen to deflect the sun's rays. So on to the luxury stuff. Now, there's the option of adding in massaging and climate control functions to the front seats as part of a luxury seating pack that also gives you 14-way electric movement and a full Oxford leather interior which extends the hide trim over the dash, the door panels and the transmission tunnel. As for other possible interior embellishments, well, you might want a heated steering wheel. There are 5 colour combinations for the cabin upholstery that matches the inner seat faces with the door cards, and the standard textured aluminium effect dash trimming inserts can be changed for a gloss black strata finish. You can also get bespoke finishing for the gear selector and the gear shift paddles, and you can add personalised door tread plates, premium carpet mats and sports pedals if you want them. On to exterior aesthetics. Now, there's a range of premium metallic colours and a whole range of alloy wheel designs with smaller 17 and 19-inch sizes if you or your chiropractor object to the various 20-inch rim options. A meaner look is delivered by the black design pack that comes with darkened headlamps and fog lights, Narvik black lower bumper guards, satin black 5 split-spoke alloys and exhaust tailpipes in dynamic black. Now, if that doesn't suit you, but you want to personalise the look of your Evoque Convertible, you might want to look at carbon fibre finishing for the side vents, the bonnet louvers and the door mirror covers. And if you don't mind compromising off-road ability, you can add side tubes too. Practicalities we'd want include the 18-inch temporary spare wheel that, if you ever have a puncture, will be a welcome alternative to the tyre repair kit that you'll otherwise be stuck with. You may also want to look at adding rear mud flaps, a bespoke ski bag, a rubber load space mat and a tow bar onto which can be mounted carriers that are able to take 2 or 3 bikes. Family owners may also want to add the iPad holders that clip onto the rear of the front headrests so the children can be kept amused on those long trips. Now, we'll move on to safety provision. Now, Land Rover couldn't afford to compromise here, and it hasn't, spending ages in perfecting a rollover protection device that features deployable rollover bars hidden in the rear quarter panel that activate in just 90 milliseconds if a likely rollover situation is detected. There are strengthened A-pillars too, plus it's been necessary to develop a different airbag system for this variant. The front seats including a combined thorax and head airbag to replace the fixed-top variant's individual thorax and head airbags. As with the conventional model, a knee bag for the driver is also provided, along with ISOFIX child seat fastenings, tyre pressure monitoring and a lane departure warning system that warns dozy drivers who are veering out of their lanes on the highway. As usual, electronic aids to ensure that an accident can be avoided in the first place include things like ABS brakes that feature emergency brake assist to aid in panic stops. Those are advertised to following motorists by automatically activating hazard warning lights. As you expect from a car of this kind, there's also TCS traction control and DSC stability control, along with hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, trailer stability assist to stop trailer sway, and for when you're off-road, hill descent control and gradient release control to ease you down those slippery slopes. Want to go further? Well, if you stretched up to the top HSE Dynamic Lux model, you get 6 more electronic safety features, all of which could be ordered as options on this lesser HSE Dynamic model. Now, headline item is probably the autonomous emergency braking system, which uses a digital stereo camera mounted next to the rearview mirror to detect objects that could pose a collision threat, delivering visual and audible warnings and automatically applying the brakes if a collision is imminent. There's also a blind spot monitor that on the move alerts you if you're about to dangerously pull out to overtake, and a reverse traffic detection feature that warns you of oncoming cars when you're reversing out of a space. Lane keeping assist works with that lane departure warning system I mentioned earlier, the assist element able to imperceptibly steer you back into line if the car drifts over the lane delineation markings. Plus, there's a driver condition monitor, and this gauges your driving reactions and warns you if drowsiness is detected. And there's also a traffic sign recognition system that pictures road signs as you pass and then displays them on the dash. We would also want to look at the adaptive cruise control with Q Assist and intelligent emergency braking package. Now here, a radar mounted in the front grille maintains a steady distance to the car in front at cruising speeds, and it can brake your Evoque and then automatically start it off again if you come across a traffic tailback, with the same technology providing further emergency braking cover if a frontal collision becomes unavoidable. Think of all the things that typically challenge efficiency in modern cars. Bluff SUV body shapes, chunky four-wheel drive systems, weighty convertible roof mechanisms, and automatic gearboxes. Well, you've got all of those things here in an Evoque whose curb weight has been increased by 280 kilos to nearly 2 tonnes as a result. Now, that being the case, you might be rather pleased to find that the TD4 diesel version of this model can still manage 49.6 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 149 grams per kilometre of carbon dioxide emissions. That means it's about 15% less efficient than the 3-door coupe variant it's based on, or to put it another way, your convertible pleasures will be costing around 7 miles on each gallon and 20 grams per kilometre of CO2. Still, this is not so far from the kind of showing that many buyers will be expecting. In comparison, the most comparable ordinary executive cabrio we can think of, say a Mercedes C220D Cabriolet 4MATIC on big 19-inch wheels, would manage 56.5 miles per gallon and 140 grams per kilometre of CO2. So Land Rover has certainly got this soft-top Evoque into something like the right running cost ballpark, or at least it has in diesel form. You can throw most of your efficiency goals out of the window if you opt for the SI4 petrol model with its turbocharged 240 bhp 2-litre power plant, which manages 32.9 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 201 grams per kilometre of emissions. To be fair, these are slightly more comparable to the figures you get in an equivalent fixed-top Evoque variant, around 10% more. To give you some perspective, the SI4 delivers about the same kind of running cost return you'd get if you blew the same budget on a 367 bhp Mercedes-AMG C43 Cabriolet 4MATIC that would still give you all-wheel drive and go far faster, which perhaps quite neatly encapsulates the kind of penalty that owners of this Evoque will need to pay in order to enjoy the whole SUV cabrio concept. Almost everyone buying this car, though, will be ordering it in the TD4 diesel guise we're testing here. And if it wasn't for the inherent efficiency of the 2-litre Ingenium series power plant, you can't help feeling that the running cost of this model would be difficult to justify. This EU6 unit uses variable exhaust valve timing and selective catalytic reduction for extra cleanliness. And as with most modern diesels, there's an AdBlue after treatment system that sprays an aqueous urea solution into the exhaust system, neutralising harmful gases like nitrogen oxide. Plus, as you'd expect, it comes with the latest stop-start technology that switches off the engine in just 300 milliseconds when the car's stationary. It'll also help if you specify the extra-cost active driveline system that at speeds above 22 miles an hour clicks the car seamlessly into front-wheel drive if 4x4 traction isn't needed. Of course, the driver will need to play his or her part in pursuit of cleanliness and frugality, keeping an eye on the eco-data part of the infotainment screen. Now here you get various screen options. There's one that shows you your impact on fuel of various electrical items, and another with so-called eco-tips that are supposed to improve your frugality, although some of these, to be quite frank, are a bit blindingly obvious. Things like make smooth use of the accelerator and maintain a constant speed. Most useful is the driving style display that marks your driving efficiency from 1 to 5 in 3 areas: acceleration, speed and engine, and braking. It'll also help that the routing software in the InControl Touch Pro navigation system can propose an economical route option to minimise fuel consumption. What else? Well, thanks to the Ingenium technology, the diesel engine can offer decently lengthy servicing intervals every 21,000 miles. The petrol engine, though, needs dealer visits every 16,000 miles. And if you want to spread the cost of scheduled maintenance, you can opt for a fixed price servicing plan that, for a one-off payment at point of purchase of around £500, covers you for 5 years or 50,000 miles, or you can cover 75,000 miles for around £650 if you're planning to see a bit more of the world in your Evoque. As for residuals, well, these should be strong, particularly in the short term while this model retains its rarity value. Provided you don't go overboard with extras, you can expect this diesel version to be worth around 60% of the original price you paid for it after 3 years and 30,000 miles. Now that is much better than you'd get from cars like cabriolet versions of the Mercedes C-Class or Audi A5 and the BMW 4 Series Convertible. As a result, leasing rates for this Range Rover aren't as high as the list figure asking prices might lead you to believe. A 3-year unlimited mileage warranty comes with this model, with further extensions available if you want them. There's also an InControl Protect service that allows you to monitor vital stats on your car from your smartphone and will guide the breakdown services to your Evoque should it ever have a problem. Also included is European cover and a promise to get you on your way as soon as possible in your own car or a loan vehicle if the required repair will take longer than 4 hours. You want to know about insurance costs too? This TD4 diesel variant is rated at either Group 39 or 41, depending on the trim level you select. If you go for the SI4 petrol version, then you're looking at either Group 41 or 43. Finally, it's worth reminding you that Land Rover is big on sustainability these days. Around 15 kilos of recycled plastic and 21 kilos of renewable and natural materials are used to build each Evoque, while the interior metal trim panels are fashioned from 95% recycled aluminium. In chopping the top off this Evoque, Land Rover has opened its bestseller up not only to the sky, but also to a widely divergent range of public opinions. Some are confused why anyone would want an SUV with a soft top or a soft top based on a 4x4. Others simply love the idea and find this car deeply desirable. Our job here isn't to pass judgment on either perspective, but to tell you how successful this model's been in fulfilling its rather curious brief. Now, in delivering that verdict, we'd have to say to start with that if, rather unreasonably, you were hoping for a convertible Evoque that would be just as good to drive, just as efficient, and nearly as practical as the comparable tin-top model, well, you're going to be disappointed. Adding 280 kilos and a bulky roof mechanism into any car will compromise it in all three of those areas, as is the case here. But don't expect that to bother those on the lengthy waiting list that almost every Land Rover dealer in the country can show you for this car. For those people, this Evoque does everything it needs to do, with a cabrio conversion that works well and standards of practicality that are probably quite adequate, given that in compensation it attracts attention like a supercar. If you're an admirer and a potential buyer, then that should help soften the impact of this model's premium pricing. In summary, this is one of those cars that you'll buy simply because you want it. Trendier folk who can't resist this Evoque will sign up for one because it's unique, it's different, and it'll bring a whole new dimension to the off-road adventures that they will almost certainly never take. It'll be a must-have fashionable accessory that'll perfect their lifestyle from Surbiton to the ski slopes. As for the rest of us, well, we might never have thought that Land Rover would ever produce a car like this. Secretly, though, we think that most of you will be rather pleased that they have.